70s Daydreams, and we are continuing with our sci-fi season, and this is another Russian film, or perhaps I guess you could call it a Soviet era film called Polygon.
I think it's Anatoly Petrov. It's the same person who did the last episode, A Miracle, for all of you tuning in at home. There's also an alternative name to this one, which is Firing Range. I think it's part of like a larger piece. So it's from 1977, and it's a little under 10 minutes long.
So we were big fans of Miracle. This one is a much different tone, but similar animation style. I'm not really sure how they animated this again. It has this really, I don't know, like kind of looks like rotoscoping.
So when I looked it up, it said it was called Photographica animation, where there are 2 celluloid layers for each character with special color schemes. And one of the layers is out of focus, and it makes it imitate like 3D space. And so it gives it like a CGI effect, but there was no CGI at that time. So it's quite like visually striking for the time. And I believe it also was done with rotoscope. I didn't find any evidence that it for sure was, but it definitely looks like rotoscope. So
yeah, like those like shadows or that second layer, like it has this like smudginess to it, and it gives it like this depth where it looks kind of 3D, but it's not. And I really can't pinpoint, like, usually when I see any like artwork, I can usually pinpoint what era it's from. But if I didn't know that this was from the 70s, I would have no idea.
Truly. It's so unique. One of the interesting things about that I also read was that the characters were designed with faces similar to like several famous people at the time, including Ringo Starr and Paul Newman, which that flew over my head. I didn't get any of those.
I mean, it's not my favorite aesthetic of the animations we've looked at, but it's still incredibly impressive, and it has this human quality, but also uncanny valley, creepy looking, but also a marvel to watch, I think.
Honestly, I would rate it up really high up there for me aesthetically. Like, it was just looking at it was amazing. There was this scene with pebbles on the beach, and the water floats over the pebbles, and like the wave comes over it and then comes back, and it changes the like color of the pebbles, and it was so like realistic, but still so like ethereal, or like and just that like small moment of like, here we're back in nature for a second, because it kind of jumps back and forth between those two like motifs of like war and technology and such, and then like nature and indigeneity and that sort of thing.
No, I mean, there are definitely some like really gorgeous scenes, and so basically there's some type of military occupation going on, and one of the generals, or one of the people in the military, he invents this weapon. It's a tank, and it's able to read the enemy's mind or emotions. So it can tell. So if you're firing at it, it has like a hatred impulse. So it knows that you're firing at it, and it will immediately like move out of the way. And then in order to attack, it can sense fear. Like the tank itself will sense fear, and then it will like shoot at you. So it's sort of like an early, like maybe it's like, I guess AI, because it's like a machine that is intelligent, and it can read emotions of the opponent. So it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, and I would say that like the overall theme is kind of like a revenge tale gone awry. It does have this open ending that we can talk about too, I'm sure, at some point. One of the interesting things about it as well was that there have been several, at least one other animations that we've looked at that does this like bookend type thing where it's the same image that starts and then it's at the end, which is that bird flying in the sky. I mean, it looked like a seagull to me, but maybe it was like a dove, or like it was meant to be like a peace symbol or something like that. I had to watch this one more than once. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, what? I don't even understand this plot. Like what's going on? The second time I watched it, it was like way clearer. But there's like repeating elements to it, like this flashback of the main like scientist, inventor, like military guy who created this technology, him flashing back to like his son running up to him. I think they said it was in Africa, it was their house, and then he died in Africa or something, because he throws him up into the air in the flashback as a child, and then you see him turn into a paratrooper, and then the paratrooper's getting shot down. And it took me until the second watch, even though they played that 3 times, to understand that that's what was going on. I think I was a little slow with that, but
yeah, basically these scientists, he explains to the other generals that his son was killed in combat. The son received like a medal for his service, and so the scientist is obviously very upset and saddened by the loss of his son. So he designs this weapon under the guise of helping hit his side, but then at one point we find out that he has the tank target the generals, because they are ostensibly the ones who are responsible for killing his son, or putting his son in a position where he was killed.
Well, the colonel at one point was just like, oh, that's sad, it's war, but like these things happen type of thing. So he was very glib about like the fact that his son, posthumously received this award, which like becomes this solemn moment. One of the interesting things about all of that too is, it was under the guise of being this like military technology that could help the colonizer people, all those people, but the inventor said, I'm not afraid of anything, I have no family. So like, which to me that was very confusing also with the end, because it ends up turning back on its creator as well. Right. And I didn't really understand how that actually came to pass, because that was the third flashback scene. He throws the kid, he doesn't even get to throw the kid into the air that time. I think the kid like runs away, and then he kind of goes into this fear spiral, and then the technology, the tank thing gets him. Mm-hmm. Did you get that at all? Like what like how did he obtain fear? Like was that since he then like he got the revenge and then he had something to live for now, or like his life was complete? It was very confusing.
Maybe like after getting the revenge, sometimes people say that once you get revenge, it's like it's not enough sometimes, and it doesn't make you feel as good as you think it will. And so maybe he felt remorse or regret or something. I mean, it did seem sort of like the Frankenstein's monster turning on his creator kind of thing. Like he created this thing to avenge himself, but then it turns on him. And, a very common theme in sci-fi. I believe that happens in 2001. Yeah, I wasn't sure how he obtained fear, but yeah, he was a very interesting character, because he had this sort of like, just this like lost kind of gruff loner, that he'd like lost everything that he loved, and he wanted to get revenge, and he does get the revenge. When they all find out that the machine is meant to attack them, I thought that was like a pivotal scene. It was very thrilling, because he leaves they're like having like lunch or something, and then the scientist leaves, and then they all like look over at each other, and they're like, oh god, the tank it's aimed at us. Mm-hmm. And then like everything's very still, and like I felt the energy in that.
Yeah, and there's that animation sequence with that guy who like runs out of like the bunker, and there are like these lines that come on him at the time. That was really wild looking.
And then so like after it blows up, the tank shoots at the encampment where they're having lunch, one of the generals, he's about to die, and then the scientist gives him the medal.
Yeah.
That the guy who's dying gets the medal from the scientist, and the scientist is like, this is the medal that you gave my son. So it shows that like the general didn't even remember that his son had died, and that he had given him the son the medal. So the guy who was running away, like he like was hiding under the trench, and then he started running towards the tank. Why was he running?
I think he was basically saying like, well, I'm not afraid of you anymore, so therefore you can't hurt me. And like, that's kind of what he was thinking or saying, because that was a very kind of unclear line, because like everybody it could read thoughts, so you could hear the thoughts, but not necessarily you were seeing people's face all the time. So it wasn't always clear if they were saying things out loud or if it was just their thoughts. But I think that he was trying to like outsmart it basically and say like, I'm not afraid of you. But then he said something about, the caterpillars, I don't want them to run me over and crush me. And then like the fear took hold then, and then it came and crushed him.
Yeah, it was very like psychological. Like I like when he's running and then he trips, because they didn't have to do that, but like it really showed the kind of like desperation and intensity of the moment of this guy. You know, he's about to die, and he's like running for his life, and then he starts charging it, and there's like dust everywhere, and then I don't know. It was very
that when he tripped, that really made me think this is rotoscope for sure, because it was so spot on perfect the way that he fell, like that the way a human would fall. So I was like, okay, they must have been tracing like, you know, real life people. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you about was, do you have an internal dialogue? Like when you are speaking, when you're thinking, is there an internal dialogue? Because like, would this not make sense to people who didn't have, you know, an internal dialogue? Especially with the camera not always being on someone's face. So like, you don't know if they're speaking or if they are thinking.
I do have one. Yeah, and some people do not have an internal dialogue, which a lot of people don't realize, but not everyone thinks in, you know, language,
speech, you know.
You know? Yeah, I didn't really pay as much attention to those differences between what was said and what was thought as much. I mean, I thought that's just a device people use to make the plot easier to understand.
And then I was also wondering, like, what languages can this tank understand? Like, is it infinite? You know, and is that part of the reason why, like, the indigenous people, they had at the end children playing on it, which was a really powerful image. Like they were like using it as a playground because they weren't afraid of it, and it was no threat to them because they weren't afraid of it.
Well, I didn't know if it was like language that it necessarily was able to read, but more just like emotion,
fear. Yeah.
You know, and I also thought like when he jumped in the trench to hide from the tank, and it started to like turn, and then like some sand fell into the trench. I thought what the tank was doing was it was going to
bury him. I thought that too. I was like, oh no, it's getting menacing.
Then the tank turns on its creator and pushes him out into the ocean until he drowns. That's always an interesting choice when people sort of like dying by their own hand in a way, because the tank didn't actually fire anything. You know, it was just sort of intimidating him and giving him no other way out, and he himself sort of, you know, dies by his own hand in a way. And then it goes to, well, I don't know if it was like fast forward into the future or something.
At the end. So it was like another faction of the military came in that boat, and they were like, so this is where it happened, where everybody died. And the indigenous people were all just like living there amongst the tank without like, you know, being afraid of it or knowing it. It was all covered in sand. And then that boat, they were like, oh no, that's the one that killed everybody. And then it sensed their fear and blew that boat up.
Yeah, they're all like looking around and they're sort of like shocked. And I was wondering, was it supposed to be like a message of like did they think that was their god or something, or there was some supernatural force protecting them?
But the thing is they didn't seem afraid of the boat at first, too, which was like they didn't seem like threatened by the arrival of that military boat. So, but then they did seem afraid once the boat was blown up. So yeah, I was really confused about that too. And I think that's part of like what makes this to me like an open-ended like ending. Like you have to kind of make your own meaning out of it.
I mean, I did like the ending. I thought it was, I don't know if it was intentional, but it felt like almost like an anti-colonial thing, because like the natives, they're like living their lives, and then the colonizer comes back and then gets destroyed by a weapon that one of the people on their team made, and it ends up, I assuming, protecting the native people.
Well, yeah, unless they became afraid of it, like, and I think that's what's open-ended about it, is like you're not really sure if the indigenous people were going to like see it as a god and a savior type of thing and revere it, or if they would be afraid of it then too, like for the power that it holds or something like that.
They definitely didn't seem to revere it as some type of special force or god at that point, because it was just buried in sand and kids were playing on it.
Right.
It didn't seem like it was some type of like altar or
right.
temple.
Right.
It seemed like it was just like a relic. Yeah, I don't know.
There's that gorgeous scene at the end though where the little kid is underwater and is riding the back of that turtle and then comes up for air and then like looks out at the boat, and I was like, wow, that's such a gorgeous scene. Like,
so they were occupying, was it an island or something? And then they were talking, and then in the early parts of the film they were talking about how they were angry that they were attacked by, quote unquote, the blacks.
I think they were talking about Africa at that point, like they were, and I think that's where I was thinking that the son died in Africa, like trying to colonize Africa with all of the military people. But I think this was a separate island and it was a testing site, because like it went into a panorama shot, I guess, and it came down into the island, and then they were talking about like different places they had colonized before. And then the guy was like, well, this is this new technology, and I think this is a testing site for it. And that would make more sense almost in the end, where they don't have strong feelings about it one way or the other, because they've had very little interaction with this technology or these people so far, other than like they came here and they all killed themselves, basically. Like,
I mean, what did you think of the depiction of the natives?
I mean, initially it was very shocking. I was like, what is this thing that we're watching? Like, I honestly don't know. Like, I don't know how to feel about it. Like, I found that the ending to me was very beautiful. Like, once the credits started to roll and I was like, all these people are like living in this peaceful society, and then like, this is definitely like anti-colonial, this is definitely like anti-war, but then the ship showed up again and then I was all confused. I loved that shot of the kid on the back of the turtle. I thought that was like such a peaceful, like beautiful scene. But like, it's hard to untangle what is a stereotype and a presupposition like of your own versus.
Yeah, I was also trying to like see it from like a Russian context. Like, how would they have viewed indigenous people and black people? I mean, they didn't seem to be as detailed, perhaps. I mean, they seemed more like silhouette.
Yeah, like I don't think they used maybe the same photographica animation technique on any of the black population, just the white people. So
yeah, I mean, they weren't like the main focus of the film, but at the same time, they're still people. So should they? I don't know. I mean, I guess they were. It seemed like the native people were portrayed in a kind of an idyllic sort of state, which is its own. That can also be another stereotype, like the noble savage type thing. But yeah, I wasn't entirely sure, just given the context, and I don't know the context. That's
right.
The thing. I'm not, Russian. I don't know what was going on at that time. I didn't even know Russia, or I don't know if this is true or not, or if it was just in the film, but I didn't know that Russia had colonies in Africa. I mean, I know that they had expanded into their neighboring countries, but
Well, the way that they're depicted, I guess what I'm trying to say is like it was so stereotypical, and I don't know what that was supposed to like mean, or like how that was supposed to make the audience feel. And then if that stereotype was meant something different in the 70s than it did now, or like if that was like, it's hard to say. Like
maybe it's just the same as it's always been, and we just are aware of it now, or maybe they were aware of it then. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting backdrop for the backdrop of like on that island and that testing site. It isn't. What was it? Krabby? Didn't that also take place on like an island? You know, there's a lot of these. You know, because you think of islands as these beautiful, idyllic kind of take it easy, slower life, slower pace lifestyle, but then you merge it with like war but it makes sense. I guess it mirrors the truth. You know, like Pearl Harbor. You know, like the U.S. took over Hawaii and made it. You've built a military base there. So I guess it's an interesting contrast of like the beautiful beaches and the forests, and then these like killing machines.
Yeah, I mean, and the idea of like an island being an isolated place too, where like maybe there aren't as many eyes to see the ills that you are like about to do. I mean, not that stopped lots of people from doing things before, but
yeah, the isolation. But I mean, how isolated is it if there are indigenous people again? But maybe like more physically isolated. Was there music?
Yeah, there was. It seemed like kind of an orchestra type of thing, and there were some sound effects and stuff as well. And I noticed the sounds of the wind and the waves were pretty effective, like in adding to the kind of almost like nonfiction type of aesthetic to it. Like it felt very real in a lot of ways, but also not very real at all. And those two things kind of juxtaposed together was very interesting aesthetically, I felt. And so like when I said in the beginning, like the stylistically, like I felt like the nature elements were really powerful to me, like that, like aesthetically. I don't know so much about like the people. Like I felt like that was really strange, like the way, like even their teeth, like they kind of like it was like almost like 4 dimensions at some point to their teeth, like when they were talking and stuff like that. Like aesthetically, I didn't love that, but like I just keep coming back to that wave and the pebbles. Like I really loved that, and I really loved the kid on the turtle too. I don't know, maybe that's just like a dream of mine. Like I want to ride the back of a turtle, and like I just like saw that and I was like, wow, like
maybe it's less the aesthetic and more like the color scheme. I mean, and that's not a fault on them. Mm-hmm. It's just that, like, there's like a lot of browns and
sand yeah.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I usually like things to be a little more vibrant, but I mean, it did what it needed to do for the setting. Yeah, this is like around the same time as like MASH and a lot of those other like more.
That's a good
content,
point. Yeah, yeah. I never really watched that. I just know of it, like,
Well, it's just it reminded me of MASH because you were saying this short had a nonfiction feel, but also like fiction feel, because obviously it's like, it's a weapon that's based off of like something that a machine can't really do. Mm-hmm. Not yet. But yeah, like MASH is kind of like because it's about the war, and it's also like a I don't want to say soap opera, but like it's a drama. Yeah. I guess, what do you think it was trying to say, or do you think there was any type?
I'm pretty comfortable saying it's an anti-war piece. And so then that makes me think, okay, maybe the ending isn't as open as I think it is, or as I would say before, but again, found it very confusing plot-wise, like had to watch it several times, like didn't like love the content of this one. Like it felt really like problematic and like hard to like digest at some points. And like, there was really beautiful imagery in it. Like, honestly, like a lot of it was almost mirroring the feelings I had about Fantastic Planet, because it was like uncanny valley stuff, the strange sometimes sounds that would come out, and it wasn't to that level that like I felt like really torn about like what is this and how do I feel about it. I feel like with this one I definitely was like not my favorite. Really loved some of the visual aspects of it. Don't understand it. Like I don't know if part of that is like a language barrier or like they lost in translation type of thing, but
I mean the main plot is pretty clear that he's getting revenge for his son. It was definitely less abstract than some of the other obscure things.
Well, to me that's more of like a trope like within the plot that like I think the larger plot is lost on me, because if it really was like a revenge, then it would be like, then that's the end and he got revenge and then it like killed him. But then there's this other like indigenous colonizer thing to it, which like I just don't, it's not fully fleshed out, and it really does a disservice to it, I feel like, because it's not. But like
it leaves you like thinking a lot.
Sure, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was just really interesting when the tank shoots that ship and then it ends. I don't know. It was a nice cliffhanger. It is a good short. It feels like it's like very psychological, and it gets to the heart of like emotions and like revenge and like power and innocence. And yeah, it is kind of cool when they show of the child being transformed into adults.
Yeah, aesthetically I felt that really like compelling too, like the way that they used motion like in the animation, and like how that guy was running out of the bunker at that one point, and when the kid was thrown up in the air and like changed into an adult, like it didn't make sense to me at first, but like it was really unique and like creative the way that they did a lot of those aspects.
So yes, Polygon is on YouTube.
Yep.
And Anatoly Petrov.
Yep.
It's a good one. And join us next for our final episode in the sci-fi series, and then we are going to continue watching cool 70s animation for you.
Yeah, it's season 3. Stick around.